Alexa loses millions for Amazon. What does this mean for the future of voice assistants? This is MacVoices. This week's MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint solution that uses the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. Learn more at kolide.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. It is Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We are live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV with a number of our friends showing up in the chat room and hopefully more joining us as we go. So with that, it's our pre-Thanksgiving show, which doesn't really mean anything because it's just, another Tuesday night so far, but you never know what'll happen.
So far.
So far, yeah. So let's go around the room. Let's see who all's here, and then we'll get to it. I think people are starting to vie for the place of the angels up in my top left corner. This time, Eric Bolden got in first, so he's in that corner. Eric, good to see you.
Hi, Chuck. Yeah. It's finally getting warmer again in Wisconsin. So, yeah, this is that's a good week.
Warmer?
Well, it was a little chilly.
Oh, okay.
Days ago, 9 degrees, and now it's like in the 30s in short sleeve weather. So,
I see. Okay. Yeah, you had me worried there for a second, Eric. I thought, okay, global warming is really getting a little bit intense if you're saying Wisconsin is warming up. Wow. David Ginsburg has been displaced from the position of the Angels, but he's in my top right corner this time around. David, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me. And it did warm up actually today in Chicago, so we're in 50s, so not too bad.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's good. Jim Ray, we don't care what the temperature is where you are because it's never cold where you are.
Moof.
That's all that needs to be said. The only guy with the Thanksgiving theme going on is his background. Mr. Mark Fuccio is back from travels all over the place. Mark, it's great to have you back.
Chuck, it's great to be back, and look forward to a good discussion with you and the panel. And maybe we can have a special prize, figure out how to do it. We can figure out in the image, who's the president and who's the turkey.
I was waiting for that joke somewhere, Mark. Thank you for making it. That was good. I like it. Webb Bixby is here. I said Webb is dressed in black, and he's looking kind of ominous tonight.
Good evening, Chuck, and Thanksgiving. Have a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Good to be here.
Great to have you. Last but absolutely not least, sneaking in just before we started the show, Mr. Jeff Gamet. Jeff, welcome. Great to see you.
It's always great to get to hang out with you and everyone else. So, yeah. And unless you need me to talk about Colorado weather, we can skip it.
Is there anything to say about it?
Some days it's cold, some days it's sunny. Some days it's both.
Those statements qualify you as a weatherman. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
They're talking about fire danger here.
Really?
Yeah. That just sucks.
Is that because of the dryness, Jim?
Yeah, but I guess specifically on Thanksgiving, it's going to be warm and windy.
Oh, okay.
Santa Ana.
Santa Ana's, yeah.
Well, then our best to you and everyone in California who might be facing maybe a not so great Thanksgiving. Let's hope nothing happens.
They're talking about preemptively shutting off the power in certain areas.
Really? Wow.
Not where I am, but not far from here.
No, I hope everything goes quietly for you.
So we have bad weather here. It's just different.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody has bad weather. Hey, I threw our first story in the chat room tonight because as I was eating dinner, there seemed to be a lot of articles about this and a lot of opinions being thrown around. This is an article from Ars Technica. It's in both chat rooms now about Amazon Alexa is a colossal failure on pace to lose $10 billion this year. I think, let's see, who brought this in? Jim, were you the one that posted this?
Mark and I both.
Mark.
Mark brought it in, and I was going to.
Yeah, you were both really interested in this. Mark, I'll let you talk a little bit about what your impressions are, because I know I have some. And then, well, I'll let you go.
Okay, yeah. So my thinking when first looking at it, 10 billion seems like a big number, and then doing a little bit of calculations, and then digging in, doing a little bit of research. I think Amazon separately will be laying off 10,000 people, and separately, they're indicating they might write off $10 billion worth of stuff. I don't think it's all $10 billion related to Alexa. There's no way I can do any math that sort of justifies that. For instance, assuming that there were 10,000 people on it, assuming a burden cost of 200,000 each, which is probably a little bit low, but we can illustrate the point. That would be only $2 billion if they were to give them a full year's worth of severance. So how you get to the other $8 billion just doesn't make any sense. And also, I suspect that they're going to have to be closing, factories and unused plants and distribution centers where they've taken leases and things. So I think the $10 billion is more looking at a total write-off or write-down that they might have this quarter. Having said that, it begs the question, well, what about Alexa? Because I know some, Apple, fanboys who actually absolutely love Alexa and hate Siri. And I think it all turns on, their voice or their particular accent that, Siri can't recognize them, whereas Alexa does. So digging in, doing a little bit of, research behind this thing, I think in the Ars Technica article, there's numbers where they talk about number of users of Google, Alexa, and Siri, and I think Siri is in second place, around I believe 77 million. Google's in third place, Alexa's in third place, around 71 million users, which is a hell of a lot of users, and I think it really begs the question of, what were they trying to hope for in bringing Alexa out? Was this just a science project that Jeff Bezos had? Because it didn't seem to have any purpose or sense in terms of how it helps Amazon. The purpose of Siri is it's another way to interact with the Apple devices, and a point I've been making for several years on this show that Apple is now competing, not on a device per device, but on the totality of their ecosystem and how all their devices, integrate together. And the fact that have Siri from everything from your watch, your Mac, your phone, your HomePod, it's a great, asset that helps, harmonize experience across all their devices, just like handoff and continuity and other Apple features. So it seems that Alexa may be very capable, voice assistant. It's had a number of black eyes in terms of privacy and things. But, I think the broader, bigger reason is that Amazon's new CEO, Andrew Jassy, he's come under pressure to sort of, fix the business and, actually boost profitability. So I think, big science projects, like Alexa, are probably on the chopping block. Because if I look at other Amazon hardware products, things like the Eero mesh Wi-Fi that we've discussed here on the show and many times, in after show, people are very, very, very pleased with that. Looking at those prices, it looks like those things are generating profits to the bottom line. Some of the commentary out there is that Alexa is part of the reason it's vulnerable is that Amazon was selling everything at cost. I don't know if it's at cost or not, but certainly they don't have very much profits if they have any at all. With the Echo Dot selling at $50 list price and used to be you can get it for 25 or $30 on Black Friday and around holidays and other specials. So, I think Alexa is, a story that has helped. And I think this is probably one of the few times I can say, Alexa, buy 1,000 rolls of toilet paper. So with that, I'll send it back to you or maybe over to Jim.
Well, Mark, clarify if you would, just to be sure here. So what was the ranking you said? Was it Alexa, Google, Siri? Is that correct?
In terms of users, yes, yeah. I believe I believe it is a Google, then Siri in the middle, and then Alexa in third place.
Okay.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wanted to be sure we got that.
Yeah, from memory, I think it was around like maybe 84 million for Google, about 77 million for Siri, and about 71 million for Alexa.
Are people using the Google just into their Android phones, or I can't believe they're the leader in devices.
Well,
I'm just reporting what I read in the article. I don't know enough about the Google to know how widely used it is and what its usage modes are. But again, I don't forget with Google, I think that also rolls up Google partners as well.
Jeff?
Okay. Google being in the top spot, no surprise. They have a presence with their Google Home Voice on a lot more than just phones. And keep in mind, they also have their voice appliances, and there are third-party companies that are making Google Home compatible or Google Home Voice capable devices as well. I honestly was surprised that Siri was higher than Alexa. But as far as Alexa being a failure, a colossal failure, Alexa, stop. This totally makes sense to me because Amazon went into the A-Lady project with a very clear goal. And the goal was to create a platform that generates additional sales through their other channels. And what they discovered is exactly what Google and Apple apparently are discovering, which is that people use devices like this to turn on their lights and set timers. Now, yes, I'm generalizing to a degree, but the intent that companies like Amazon assumed users would go for is not what has happened at all. So, yeah, this is a product that is not generating the revenue that it should. Then we have the added problem with the voice assistant market is mediocre at best for quality. There are people that will prefer, of the three, A-Lady, G-Lady, S-Lady, one of those, and the other two they'll think are pretty crappy. My experience having all three and doing lots of testing with all three is that turns out they're all actually pretty crappy, and they're all unreliable. And if you try to use these the way that companies market them to us, which is that these are like Star Trek, you just talk to the air and magic happens. No, none of these will do that. And if you're like me, you will end up in arguments with your devices trying to get them to do the one thing that you expect them to do, turn a light on or off. And even worse for someone like me, since I have all three in here, I eventually give up and ask one of the other devices to do the thing that the first one couldn't do, or to fix the thing that the first one did wrong, or whatever it is. Anyhow, so I'm not surprised that Amazon is scaling back on their resources that are going into the A-Lady project. And at the same time, I expect that this product line will stick around Probably not as many refreshes as we get from them now. I expect the same thing with Google. And at this point, I've transitioned from thinking, yeah, Apple's going to come out with something that replaces or that gives us features like the original HomePod, a bigger device. And I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, I think the HomePod Mini might be as far as Apple goes with a smart speaker lineup, because I don't think that there's really a market there for any of these companies, especially since we already have iPhones and Apple Watches and iPads. The HomePod line, I think, is a hard sell, just like the Echo line is a hard sell and the Google speaker line is a hard sell.
Jeff, I think you're a bridge too far on the last, wrapping in the different audio devices, because I think that the original HomePods, I think Apple caught flat-footed and off balance, when everybody else was looking at Echo and at Amazon and Google, and Apple came out with a device that was for audio quality, and they sort of had a last-minute retrofit to put Siri onto it. So we'll have to see what Apple does in terms of the audio reproduction device market, which I think overlaps with smart speakers, but is not identical to it.
I expect that we will see the voice assistant market to continue, although it wouldn't surprise me to see all three of the big players scale back their funding that goes into those projects. The extension of that being the smart speaker business. I don't think this is a moneymaker for any of these companies, and I think that it's going to be a long time before we see a major innovation in that space that really kicks that part of the market forward. And with go ahead.
I'm sorry. The other thing too is you have third-party companies that are getting the voice assistant added to them. In the case of like Ecobee for the thermostat, I have that on mine. Sonos with their Move speaker, you can do both A-Lady and Google Home. It's your choice. You can't do both. But it seems like they're also trying to extend out and go to the third-party devices as well. So, but I agree with you, Jeff, on the fact that a lot of these, all the voice assistants are just, the market's kind of stagnant. I mean, I just don't know where it's going to go and how it's going to proceed. So,
this week's Mac Voices is brought to you by Kolide. Kolide is a fleet visibility solution for Mac, Windows, and Linux that can help you securely scale your business. The challenge with endpoint security has always been that it's difficult to scale. And when remote work took over, the challenge got exponentially harder. With remote work continuing to be widespread, the challenge remains. You need visibility into your fleet of devices in order to meet security goals and reduce service desk tickets. But how do you get that visibility when different parts of your company run on Mac, Windows, and Linux? You get Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint security solution that gives IT teams a single dashboard for all devices, regardless of their operating system. Kolide gives you real-time access to your fleet's data and can do things that traditional MDMs can't. And instead of installing intrusive agents or locking down devices, Kolide takes a user-focused approach that communicates security recommendations to your employees directly on Slack. You can answer every question you have about your fleet without intruding on your workforce. Visit kolide.com/MacVoices to find out how. If you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating a free trial. That's Kolide, KOLIDE.com/MacVoices. Kolide.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Kolide for supporting this week's Mac Voices. In the chat room, Rich says, I use Alexa mainly because the dots are super cheap, $20. Usually ask what's the weather, etc., but now Prime includes music. Set up dots for stereo, but sometimes they're very hard to set up. But he uses Siri for mobile and CarPlay.
Right.
So interesting that, because
this doesn't surprise me at all.
No,
yeah, and
because Amazon did try to extend and get their car device, the little thing looked like a little pack of gum. That
there's one sitting in the glove box in my car.
Yeah, I tried it, and I think it's in a box somewhere now. I thought it was kind of useless because it just didn't work right. And why do I want to have that thing sitting on my dash to have?
And then you have to connect it to your phone.
Yeah.
So why not just use your phone for the voice assistant?
Just use my phone as voice assistant, right?
Webb, you were shaking your head pretty vigorously when Jeff said that his experience is mediocre at best. Is that your
absolutely, absolutely. Like David, I have the Ecobee thermostats, and they have Alexa built into those. In my world, I have both the HomePod and the Alexa device, and Jeff's described it much better than I ever could. Is that you ask one device to do something, it doesn't do it or doesn't do it right. So then I ask this other device to fix what the first device couldn't do right. So, I also agree with Mark is that 10 billion is a big number, and I'm not sure how they get there unless they're saying that they had some revenue anticipation of people ordering a lot of stuff through Alexa, their Amazon orders, and that just didn't come through. That's the only way that I could figure that they were losing $10 billion was some lost opportunity that they never ever achieved. So anyway,
they're trying to make it look good so that Elon will buy
it. That'll fix everything.
Yeah, that'll really fix it.
There you go.
He's not interested unless it's losing at least 10 million. One thing I think is interesting is you go back a few years and everyone was like, "Oh, Apple is left out, left behind, and they've blown it." And looks like nope, they did not.
Don't you think that
same kind of story as with Google Glasses? Everyone was like, "Oh, Google has cornered that market, and it's, they've frozen Apple out, and Apple's doomed because Google has cornered the glasses, which is going to be the whole future of the industry." This is very, the pundits like to, go off on these tangents, and certainly I thought the voice assistants, same thing. That are these really that useful? I've never used any of them. I have an Echo Dot I got free with an order a couple of years ago. And a few years ago, I never even took it out of the box. And I don't use Siri, which is in all of my devices.
Interesting. Eric, how about you?
I think it's just a little bit early, and a bunch of the devices kind of peaked and kind of matured early on. People seem to be somewhat more happy, I think, with Google and Amazon because it seemed like it recognized more things. But I keep seeing improvements in Siri over time, and the accuracy is getting better. It's not more complete. You can't have a conversation, but something simple like asking about the weather or asking for short bits of information or trying to send a note to someone while you're driving in the car, that kind of thing, I'm finding to be a lot more successful now than it was 8 months ago, certainly much more successful than a year ago. And I see all of that as practice for when you try to do something like glasses where you don't have a whole lot of an interface, unless you're planning on whipping out your phone every time you're trying to use your glasses. I think you're going to need some sort of audio or touch control for at least some things you're doing. So I'm hoping that really just a little bit more time, more data, and the speakers give you the ability to collect that kind of information.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I think that when we're looking at the long-term game for the big three players, Alexa's in the worst position overall. When you look at the general business model for the voice assistants. Amazon's goal is to sell you stuff. Google's goal is to sell you, and Apple's goal is to sell you their stuff, their own stuff. So Google already has a built-in revenue stream, which is where the customer, or where the product. Apple, they have enough money; they can play the long game and continue to evolve their voice assistant to build in more loyalty into their ecosystem. Whereas Amazon, they have to figure out how can they really monetize their voice assistant platform, and the goal was get us to buy more stuff on Amazon, and that's not happening.
Mark?
Yeah, I was going to say I agree. I think with Eric and Webb that Siri is getting a little bit better. It seems that it's most useful and accurate when you tell it to do things relative to controlling your particular devices, etc. Unlike a couple of years ago now, if you ask it a complex question, it's coming back with, "Oh, I can't tell you, but I found things on the web, and do you want me to send it to your phone?" So, it's getting a little bit smarter instead of just saying, "Oh, I don't know anything about that," or whatever its default phrase is. But again, just stepping back, this is a hard problem. The fact that it can recognize and it can do as good a job at dictation and translation is a really or all of them is worthy of giving the gold star for accomplishment. And again, just thinking about Alexa, this is not the first time Bezos took a big swing and a big bet that didn't pay off, because we'll remember his phone that they came out with. So
I had one.
I think for whatever reason it didn't work out, but they certainly helped move things forward, and certainly it was a competitive threat that I don't think Siri would be as good now if it didn't have Alexa as a competitor. So let's not have let's not dance on the coffin of a competitor who had a product that didn't work out, because they were helping and moving the entire marketplace forward, albeit indirectly.
So there are a couple things here, and I wanted, in fact, there are a number of things I want to explore just a little bit. Jeff, your point, the breakdown of what Google's purpose was, what Amazon's purpose was, what Apple's purpose was pretty good. I look at this and say, well, first of all, I want to give credit to John Gruber. He made a little not a little post on Daring Fireball today, pointing out that all of a sudden Apple HomePods don't look quite as expensive as they did a little while ago, because they're, for the most part, and I'm thinking what Rich was saying about the Echo Dots. There's some decent Alexa devices from a music speaker standpoint, but not all of them by any means. And the HomePods seem to have been marketed as speakers from the beginning, at both the full size and the minis, and so they kind of have a place. And a lot of people accused Apple of just bolting on Siri onto those, as opposed to developing it the way Alexa did, the way Amazon did for Alexa. Got to get this straight. Too many A's. So, I feel like, there's something to be said for that, because we all had to buy Alexa devices. Now, we had to buy HomePods too, but I think most of us didn't purchase them specifically as Siri devices. Somebody dispute that. If you did, then good for you. I never looked at my HomePod as a Siri device. It was a decent speaker that happened to have a voice assistant built in. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, did anybody buy these specifically as Siri devices?
Not I.
Well,
No.
I didn't buy one, but I don't see why you wouldn't buy it unless you were planning on using Siri. if you want a speaker, there's tons of, great Bluetooth and even AirPlay options, out there. The HomePod you can't even use as a speaker, except to play out of Apple's, ecosystem.
Right. But again, we're back into the discussion of Apple's ecosystem. That was the way that audio got out of, or was addressed in Apple's ecosystem.
Yeah, except, I could buy a nice little Bluetooth speaker and just play it off my phone. And it'd be battery powered and, et cetera. I mean, I don't need a HomePod. The whole thing about a HomePod is it's standalone. And I can just say, HomePod, play this.
I think
I still think that the HomePod, the original HomePod, as a speaker was exceptional. The sound quality was exceptional out of all the other devices that were out there. That was the one thing that I really liked about it. But
for $700, you could buy a nice. Not that saying that theirs wasn't, but there's other.
There's an Apple tax that
goes.
There was an Apple tax that goes with it. I don't deny that. So.
I always resist the word Apple tax because that implies that you had to. I don't know, that implies something negative. It's just like, okay, Apple priced them at that price.
Apple Premium.
Okay, maybe an Apple Premium. That feels a little better because it was a premium product. There's no question about it. And it didn't necessarily sell as well as they would have liked, but that's what you do when you get Apple devices. You're paying a premium for a premium product.
Well, and part of what Apple was doing, which we've touched on already, is it was releasing a product that was designed to help keep people in the Apple ecosystem. So when you bought the original HomePod, yes, you were buying a good speaker. And there were some comparisons that were done that said, hey, if you bought this as a comparable product from another company, it would be a lot more and whatever. The thing is that when Apple released the HomePod, they were giving us a good speaker, but they were also giving us a voice assistant device and a HomeKit bridge, and doing all of that in one. I mean, that's clearly a product that's designed to be sold to people with the intent of making sure that they continue to use Apple products.
Yeah. Mark, you want it in?
Yeah. So I have a follow-up for Jim. I mean, it sounds like you were pointing out that yes, there are other devices at different price points that will work with Apple. And then it seems like you got cut off. So it seems like you have another half of your thought that hasn't been articulated.
I don't think so. I was just saying that although, like the HomePod's a good speaker, especially the big one, it took $700 to buy a stereo pair. And there's some other, products out on the market if you just want a speaker. One thing that hasn't been brought up that is, I wonder where the cost is on all of these products. I'm kind of suspecting that most of it is on the back end and, not the device. These devices, they don't have much in them. And there's not a lot of R&D, they don't even have a screen. So, pennies worth of parts and stuff like that. But on the back end, all this stuff is happening on servers and people trying to write better, software, for the recognition and stuff. I suspect that's where most of the expense is. So if Amazon is cutting expense, that's probably where it's going to go and not improving it. I kind of think, these were oversold, especially when Amazon came out with theirs. And people were ready to believe it, that, people were like, oh, HAL 9000 is here. I can talk to this device. And, then, so they sold a ton of them and And then people figured out, oh, I can't really talk to this device. And, you certainly can't have a conversation with it. Each interaction with it is completely separate. So you can't clarify, which is what people always want to do. They give some instruction or ask a question and it doesn't come up with the right thing. And I've seen this, people do this so many times, like they do with a person. They'd be like, oh, well, I meant this. Well, it has no memory of what you just asked it 10 seconds ago. And so ultimately the products were, nowhere near what people imagined and hoped and thought they were buying. So, I suspect a lot of the interest is people are like, oh yeah, I tried that. It sucked. Never mind.
So I'm curious.
I think you're right, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mark, you want to go in?
Yeah, I would try to clarify. Hopefully not. I don't want to be pedantic, but when Jim says it talks about the cost, of these products, that's too big a bucket. I think we need to subdivide it into, there's the cost of the physical product that somebody buys, and then there's the cost of providing the voice enabled and other services that Apple or Amazon or Google bear, and they're very, very different. And in the case of Apple, where they make Siri a part of the ecosystem across all of their products, they have a base of millions or billions of units over which to amortize the cost of their servers and bandwidth and everything else. And that's something that clearly Google or an Amazon doesn't have, because they're not selling anything. Their bet is, oh, well, this will somehow lead you to buy more stuff from me. So in that regard, and we've discussed on the show, at each of the product launches, that Apple has really done a hell of a job in terms of the original HomePod. Why is it expensive? Well, it's got 7 speakers in it, small little ones, plus the one big woofer, plus the electronics, plus a couple mics, and yes, maybe $350 originally was a sticker shock, but the price did come down over time before it was discontinued, which is exactly the sort of behavior that you would like to see and would expect. And then the HomePod Mini has been $99, and then there are specials at them that where they sell even lower. So I think that they're a little bit higher than some of the other things, but I think, get real. Would you rather listen to an Amazon Dot or a HomePod? If you want to have a good music listening enjoyment experience.
Oh, Mark. The Echo Dot is wonderful for making that happen, because you can pick one up for like $25 and do like I did and put and plug a really nice set of shelf speakers into it, and it costs way less than getting a HomePod, and then hook your Apple ID into it, and now you have a really good Apple Music stereo system in your home.
How does an Echo Dot play Apple Music?
Sure. It will link to your Apple Music account.
That was new, really? I think, earlier this year.
Yeah. Maybe early last year.
Yeah, I think it wasn't right off the bat. It eventually came around to that.
But cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can connect any of the streaming music services to your Echo, and then you can even set it so whichever one you want is the default. And then for the others, you just say, "Hey, lady, play whatever on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever," and then it just picks up and runs with whatever service you've connected, and it works surprisingly well.
So again, does anyone remember about 5-6 years ago, Amazon came out with these little Amazon buttons that were,
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you can plug it to rebuy dog food or baby diapers or anything else. So, I mean, I think they've been experimenting with all sorts of things to make it easier to buy things. It seems that probably the thing that, from my viewpoint, probably resonates, has the most stickiness is, you can get subscriptions on things like, like dog food or, eye drops for your dogs, on Amazon. They'll say, would you like a one-time buy, or would you like to set up a subscription? We'll give you this much discount if you set up as a subscription. So, clearly, they're experimenting with different ways to, maximize.
Have you set up any of those subscriptions?
Yes. And then
because
cancel.
I'm like, every time I'm like, no.
On some things I have, and then I've canceled them because the you sort of like the frequency is, if you like it for consume something over a 4-week period, it will give you a subscription of a 3-week period. So after a while, you develop a stockpile of stuff and shit, I don't need this, and you just cancel the subscription. But again, it's Amazon, right? They're maximizing the amount of stuff that they sell you, whether you need it at that time or not.
On the whole thing of buying from Amazon, those of us with Echo devices, how many people other than me have actually made purchases through their Echo device?
Oh, I'm sure by my saying, Alexa, buy 1,000 rolls of toilet paper for Jeff, that I'm guilty of buying stuff on other people's behalf.
I am so glad that when I do podcasts, I have inner monitors, so my A-ladies cannot hear you buying stuff for me.
Yes.
And for the rest of the world, Mark is the one that just caused the toilet paper shortage.
And everybody has been listening, and we've triggered their A-lady a number of times tonight.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, across all the voice assistants, have our expectations been too high? I'm not sure who said it earlier, but we all, I think, expected Star Trek, and when we didn't get it, we started to complain. And I don't know if we those expectations just stayed there as new Star Trek series came out and just got more, so we got less and less enchanted with these devices, or did some of us, and I'll count myself in this, did some of us come to recognize their limitations and use them for what they were good for? And I'll speak for myself. My frustration level, I consider my frustration level with the AOAD and with the SOAD both as minimal, because I don't have huge expectations for them. And when they do come through and tell me something, more than I expect, I'm pleasantly surprised.
As a software developer, my expectation was negative from the beginning, which is why I've never bought any or used any. So, I don't really, but that's probably unfair because I've got some view of how the sausage is made, and I've seen other people that have no idea how software works, and they expected this to work like a person.
But my biggest dissatisfaction, frankly, with Siri is sometimes you get the regression. Like, you used to be able to ask it, hey, Siri, what's the market cap of Apple and Microsoft? Whatever this most recent upgrade was about a week or 10 days ago, can't answer that. Once upon a time, it used to be able to do that. Why Siri got dumber on that, I have no idea. I asked her, and she said, "Oh, I can't. It's not about me. What can I help you with?" And then the other thing is just the flakiness of the availability of the service, because I think I went into it. What is this good for? What can it do? And I didn't expect it to have a conversation. I didn't expect it to be like like even like even a sixth grader in terms of the ability to have, conversation and, give it a task and it can go off and do it. So I've been surprised, at the increase in functionality. I think I was sort of aligned with Jim that, yes, I had low expectations going into it. But to me, the biggest source of dissatisfaction is it's there and then it's not. It's there and then it's not. It's very, very reliable for months and then it's not. And that's the sort of stuff that just makes your head explode.
Have you guys ever heard of the uncanny valley?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly has.
I think that's part of the problem here is, these devices are kind of into that a little bit. So, they make you think that, they are really going to, act like humans. But, because they have this sort of resemblance. I mean, usually I think that's not so much speech, but I don't see why it couldn't be applied to that. So you start interacting with it like it's going to, act like a person, but it doesn't. And so then that becomes very frustrating and disorienting.
Right. I don't know. Was it Webb or Jeff? It's said that one of the problems with Siri is it has no memory. So it has no context for how it discussion.
That was me.
Okay. Yeah. And that's again. That's,
but I mean,
that's a very difficult problem.
Yeah, that's a general AI problem. I mean, so there's two aspects. One is they're kind of getting voice recognition down pretty good. So I think that's where these things came from. It's like, oh, we can do voice recognition, and that just keeps getting better and better. I mean, my gosh, look, we've got automatically generated captions now that work pretty good, as we're talking right now. But that's only a small part of of the problem. And even if you could just type in, we're nowhere near making, emulating interacting with a human. And I don't expect to see that in my lifetime, or even if I had grandkids, I don't think they would see it. So, I think I think people looked at, oh, we've got the voice recognition, so we're done. And that turned, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I don't know what to speculate on what they thought, but yeah, it's clear it's not going to pass the Turing test, for quite some time.
Brett in the chat room says, I still think Siri won't unlock its full potential, and until you can actually use it as a smart assistant to book travel arrangements, order takeout, or do some more tasks. And Brett, I kind of agree with you, but that thinking is kind of why I asked the question. Were our expectations too much? I mean, what Jim's point is great, because we turned on transcriptions for the stream for the first time, kind of by accident tonight, but it gives you a good sample of just how good some of the recognition can be. It's the parsing of the meaning that it seems to be where things fall apart a little bit. This MacVoices Live panel is back in the next edition of MacVoices to finish up our conversation about voice assistants, our expectations of them, and how well they do or don't deliver. That's next time on MacVoices. We'll see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.